Hey, it's Philip, and before we start today's episode, I have some exciting news about a project you're going to love. Over the years, I've discovered what truly works for getting sustainable, life-changing results in your fitness journey. And now my team and I are about to launch a first-of-its-kind semi-private community experience called Wits and Weights Physique University. It's a game changer in the nutrition coaching space, featuring a done-for-you custom nutrition plan, monthly workout programs, in-depth courses on nutrition, training, and mindset, and a supportive private community where you can connect with like-minded individuals and even get one-on-one support. If you've been struggling to make progress despite your best efforts, head over to the link in the show notes to join the pre-sale early notification list. You'll be the first to know when the program launches and have the chance to secure your spot at an exclusive pre-sale price. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Having a home gym is a great time-saving hack. It's a huge excuse obliterator for so many people if you can do it. And the other thing that surprises people is the investment in like a power rack, a bar, and plates is probably about the same as getting a whole set of dumbbells. Like maybe not quite, but it's not that far off. Yeah. Welcome to the Wits and Weights podcast. I'm your host, Philip Pape, and this twice-a-week podcast is dedicated to helping you achieve physical self-mastery by getting stronger, optimizing your nutrition, and upgrading your body composition. We'll uncover science-backed strategies for movement, metabolism, muscle, and mindset with a skeptical eye on the fitness industry so you can look and feel your absolute best. Let's dive right in. Wits and Weights community, welcome to another bonus episode of the Wits and Weights podcast. This conversation is from my appearance on Jen Rulon's podcast, The Everyday Healthy Human. Jen invited me on her show to discuss the importance of evidence-based fitness and nutrition, debunk the need for excessive cardio to lose weight, and emphasize the benefits of lifting heavy. You'll learn about the significance of building habits and non-negotiables in achieving long-term success, and I shared my personal journey and offered advice for those going through a change. Throughout our conversation, we highlighted the importance of focusing on strength, adopting a flexible approach to nutrition, and finding joy in the process of transformation. You'll learn why an evidence-based approach is crucial for navigating the often confusing world of fitness and nutrition. Enjoy my conversation with Jen Rulon on the Everyday Healthy Human podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everyday Healthy Human podcast. I am your host, Jen Rulon, or you may know me on the gram as Coach Jen. Well, today I have a guest that I'm super excited about because, as y'all know, I am obsessed with strength training, living longer than we could ever imagine. And I connected with Philip on Podmatch, and Podmatch has been very good about connecting podcasters and guests to bring it on your podcast. So, Philip, and I'm going to botch your name, and I meant to ask you this beforehand.
Pape. It's Pape.
Pape. Philip Pape. Welcome to the Everyday Healthy Human podcast.
Thanks, Jen. Coach Jen. So great to be here. I love your podcast as well.
Thank you. Can you share with my followers a little bit about who you are, and then we'll dive even deeper?
Sure. I mean, before we started recording, I mentioned that I'm first and foremost a father, also a husband. So I'm kind of a protector provider, and that gives me the purpose in a lot of what I do. But as far as my background, my business, I am a podcaster, and I'm also a certified nutrition coach and what I call physique engineer. I think I made up that term. I haven't seen it anywhere else. And I say it in that order because, many coaches happen to have a podcast, but my love for helping people actually began with my show back in late 2021, after I'd gone through my own personal transformation, because that was for me a platform where I could reach other like-minded people. And by that, I mean very curious, very driven action takers who were frustrated, right, with not being able to get the results they wanted, whether it's physique, energy, what have you, and are also very skeptical of the fitness industry and the confusing mixed messages that we constantly hear. Okay.
Amazing. Yes.
So I spent 2 decades of my life. I'm in my 40s now. And I like to say that I'm getting younger with every year of age. That's my goal right now.
Love it.
Yeah, no. And I wasted my time, honestly, on things like fad diets, right? Keto, paleo. I did intermittent fasting. I did 8 years killing myself in CrossFit. And I didn't.
Ooh,
Yeah,
so did I.
you did. Yeah, I know. And you did the Ironman, which I couldn't
Yep.
even imagine. Yeah, no, but I didn't really feel like a everyday healthy human across any dimension, right? Physique, energy, performance, all of that. I was just kind of going through life, and that really messes with your confidence, right? It makes you question what's even possible to achieve, whatever your goal is, whether it's your best body or best health. And sometimes you say like, my genetics are what they are, or it is my lot in life, no matter what I do. But I'm not the type to give up, right? And so I was turning 40 in late 2000 or in 2020, which we know what happened that year. So I had a lot of time on my hands working from home to seek out information and learn a ton related to fitness and lifting from coaches, books, videos, you name it, podcasts, of course. And I finally stumbled into this amazing world of evidence-based fitness and nutrition that I am totally in love with today. I'm enamored with it because it gave me information that worked for the first time that I could actually get results from. So that year, I took that information, I experimented. I moved from the high intensity boot camp style training that I learned from CrossFit over to lifting heavy, making steady progress, progressive overload, getting stronger, building muscle. And then that tied into nutrition, where I realized I needed to learn how to eat better as well to fuel the performance, not to lose weight. And so I can go on and on. I love to talk because I have my own podcast, Jen. But it really, the long story short, I started seeing the results myself in the mirror, in my mind, and I wanted to teach people. And so I combined that with my love of engineering and systems and data, and started helping people, optimize their health, optimize their physique, and get the confidence to know what to do, how to do it, and to actually make it happen.
So, like, you did high intensity training, you did CrossFit. Did you feel like you were in shape? Like at that time, like before 2020, did you feel like, oh, I'm in pretty decent shape?
Yes and no. I had great conditioning. So, my zone 4, zone 5 cardio was like through the roof, VO2 max, low HRV, all that. And so I felt great in that respect. I also very much enjoyed group classes, the community, and I enjoyed the fact that I could use a barbell, which I had never used before until I joined CrossFit. So not to take away from it, but I wasn't getting, I was sort of flatlining and plateauing. I wasn't getting past the point I wanted to, and I definitely didn't felt strong. And my body was getting kind of achy, and recovery was getting harder to come by, and all of those things. That's what led me to switch it up.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I talk with my clients every week, and a lot of them are starting they're 4 weeks in, and they're like, but I'm not sore from strength training. And I'm like, because I don't want you to be sore. Like you're fueling the right way. You're doing the workouts the right way. I'm not trying to trash your body and doing 100 squats. Or what's one of the workouts was like 150 wall balls, and then whatever you
Burpees,
have
wall
left, you try
balls,
to do
box
muscle ups,
jumps. I love that.
burpees,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
All
Like
that stuff.
and the point is, like you said, not taking away from CrossFit, because I think it's done a lot of good for society. But I also want people to realize that no, you don't have to wake up sore every single day. Like that's not the point.
There's so many things people chase thinking that it's correlated with the outcome, like soreness. And it's when you start lifting heavy in a lower rep range and you're doing more or less the same movements over time, your body adapts really quickly to that and will not get sore if you're eating and sleeping enough. So if you are getting sore, it could be a negative thing. Not always, right? If you're doing hypertrophy or bodybuilding movements, new movements will introduce soreness, and certain forms of cardio will introduce soreness, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about debunking a few things, because I think that's really good for a lot of us, a lot of my followers, even a lot of my clients. And I think my clients are finally recognizing, like, hey, the strength training thing isn't bad. So when I have people come to me, they say, hey, Jen, I want to lose weight. I want to lose 10 to 15 pounds. I need to do more cardio. I need to do more, and not to do a lot of weight. So can you talk a little bit about people feeling like they need to do more cardio to lose weight?
first of all, losing weight in and of itself. And if a client ever comes to me saying I need to lose weight, I like to have a conversation around the mindset behind why is a number so important? And let's talk about fat loss versus weight loss versus what are you really going for? And if I pick like 100 people off the street and said, what do you want out of your fitness? They'd say, I want to look great. I want to feel great. Like that's generally what most people want.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Why do you think losing 10 pounds is going to get you there? Right. Let me ask women who are listening, how many times you have dieted and have lost successfully 10 or 20 pounds? Many times, right, Jen? Many times.
Many times, right.
Did it make you happy? Right. Did it make you happy? In contrast, wouldn't you rather be in a situation where you feel great, you get to eat a lot more food, eat whatever you want pretty much, and the things that you enjoy, not feel guilty about it either, and also get leaner, toner, tighter, and this fitter body at a higher body weight, which is I think what you're going for. You're not going to get bulky. I can't get bulky. I'm a dude, and it's hard to get as big as I would love to get. So yeah, it's I think the myth is starting to come around with a lot of people, because I hear a lot of women coming to me saying like, I want to build muscle. Like, awesome, let's do it. You're going to eat. You're going to eat a lot, but that's okay. You might gain a tiny bit of fat along the way, but we're going to cut that off, no problem. And you're going to be leaner and fitter as a result.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said something about like eating what you want. Like I've had many clients be like, oh, but I had some potatoes. That's okay. Have potatoes. Like I want you to eat how you normally eat. If you go to Chick-fil-A every Friday with your kids, like make the right choice in doing that. But like, I don't want you to totally like take everything out and then you drop all this weight and then you leave me for not coaching anymore, right? And then all of a sudden you gain it back plus.
Yeah, I just did an episode called The Freedom of No More Cheat Meals, because I want people to get away from the idea that there is anything to cheat against. Like if you feel like you're cheating, you're making a moral decision. We don't want our food choices to cause guilt because there's a good and a bad. We want to pick things that are aligned with our goals, that fuel our workouts, that help us sleep better, that help with our hormones, And that could be low carb, high carb, medium carb, high protein, low. Well, no, it's all fairly high protein, but that's a non-negotiable. But it's a flexible approach, right? And it's funny you mentioned potatoes, because like just yesterday I had a client check in where my feedback to her during fat loss, she's now in a fat loss phase after having built muscle for like 6 months, was she said, she's having a little bit of hunger at a certain time of day. And it was around her workout. And I said, have you tried potatoes? Because potatoes give you carbs, but they're also the most satiating food on the planet. And she's like, oh, I forgot about that. And I have this fear around it, but thanks for reminding me. I'm going to incorporate potatoes again.
Yeah. I mean, if I look back at my nutrition journey, and I've talked about this on my podcast, like I hated nutrition because I grew up with, the mom, the grandma, the aunts always on a diet, and so when I would want a burger and fries, I would have to justify it and be like, oh, well, I just rode 6 hours. So of course I can go have a burger and fry. And it was a long time for me to snap out of that unhealthy thought process behind food.
Yeah. And it leads to other things that shouldn't have to exist, such as the idea of trigger foods. So like I hardly use that term in my practice, at least. And this, for me, it's a lot of mindset and psychology, Jen, right? So if you use some of these 100%. Terms, I get it. But like the idea of a trigger food implies that there's this thing that's outside of you that's going to cause you to just lose control and your emotions are going to take over, as opposed to let's identify those situations and the emotions we get from them and plan ahead and put something in place that kind of blocks that, right? And by that, I mean, how about have the foods that are your trigger foods on a frequent basis in small amounts so they don't trigger you anymore? That's just one of many strategies. So it's getting control of your body and your mind through these practices rather than thinking that, we're beholden to those situations.
Yeah. I noticed too with the clients I've been working with is that they start tracking, they start looking at things and they're like, oh, I can have that. That does fit my macros. And I'm like, y'all can have a donut if you want. Like, I'm okay with that, but just track it and see where it sits. And then maybe your carbohydrates, but maybe you had a donut and you just went skiing for 5 hours, like it's okay to have that. Just track it.
Exactly.
But
Yeah. And even like you can tell with the language when they say, well, I was good or bad, or I will do better. It's like, no, let's reframe that. Like there's no good or bad. There's just reality. There's information and there's the data. Like you said, tracking and monitoring is one of the best things we can do. People will say, oh, it's too tedious to track. Well, I don't know. When you have to go on a big trip, do you track your budget like to see where the money's going? You should do the same for the energy coming into your body. Oh, it's funny because last year I did a very brief, fairly aggressive fat loss phase for myself as an experiment with some of my clients. And it's way more aggressive than normally I would recommend, but we were training hard. We were eating a lot of protein. It was 2 weeks long. I intentionally set 2 days within those 2 weeks to go out to eat, just to like show people like, here's how you can plan ahead. And it reminded me that it's hard, but totally doable. And I remember going to this really nice restaurant where I would normally have like a lot, right? And I'm like, okay, I've got to have the scallops. They've got some alcohol-free rum, so I can enjoy some what seems like a beverage. Get the nice huge salad. Like you can make easy choices as long as you plan ahead and easily hit even very aggressive macros if you had them.
Right. Agreed. I still remember my professor at University of Texas, San Antonio for my master's degree. And he's like, is broccoli good for you? Is a donut bad for you? And it's like, and that's the very common question because Oprah magazine says that, and so people read that and they think, oh my God. It's like, well, you know what? I just got done with an Ironman. I'm sure going to have a donut the next day, right? Because my body's like, I need food. Is eating a piece of broccoli going to help me? Probably not as much as, I need the calories, I need to fuel that tank. I wanted to talk to you about, you talk a lot about the importance of lifting heavy, but what does that exactly mean? And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, lifting heavy is relative to you, but it also means focusing on strength as a beginner. So I like when I have a beginning client who's never lifted before, start their strength training regimen 3 days a week, full body, lifting in the 4 to 6 rep range for big compound lifts. And that's it. Very super simple. It's time efficient. It's only like 4 movements to learn so you can practice form and get better at them quickly. And guess what? All I want you to do is increase the weight every time you go to the gym on those lifts. The first 3, 4, 5 sessions, it may not feel quote unquote heavy, but pretty soon by doing the same number of sets and reps and just increasing the weight, it's going to start hitting your limit. It's going to start getting close to that limit. But if you can get them in and then you sleep and eat, you'll be able to lift a little more next time and next time and next time. That's what I mean by lifting heavy. Progressive overload, progress over time, and causing your body to adapt and build strength and muscle.
And I know what compound movements are. Can you explain to the followers what that compound movements are?
Sure. That's just a lift that uses multiple joints on your body. So that would be a squat, a deadlift, a press, a bench press. And there's a whole bunch of other ones like rows or accessory movements that are considered, even pull-ups would be compound. And the reason I love them is because they use more muscle mass. They use more muscle groups for the same amount of time. So they're very time efficient, but also you can lift them very heavy if you're using barbells or even dumbbells where you're recruiting the bigger muscle fibers. And that contributes to the motor pattern that we're trying to develop as we get stronger, that then leads to developing more muscle mass. So again, beginners, it's like, if you can focus on strength, you'll make a lot of progress and double all your lifts pretty quickly within a few months. Then you can do all the more fun stuff like body part splits and bodybuilding movements and whatnot.
Right. No, I love that. And it's interesting. It's like, I still remember my mom asking me, she's like, well, what's the biggest, heaviest weight you've ever lifted? And I'm like, well, it depends on the movement, Mom. She's like, well, just tell me. And I'm like, well, I think back in the days, it was like a deadlift in the CrossFit days, right? Maybe like 260 for a 130 girl, mm-hmm. And she's like, oh my goodness, that's great. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's all relative, right? I mean,
it's all relative.
it's all relative. And that might be your warm up, Philip.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You don't want to compare to other people, right? You're trying to beat your own PRs. And if you're a beginner, you could start with body weight, you can start with bands, you can start with an empty bar. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm not going to judge you for any of that. Eventually, once you get strong enough, you're probably going to need free weights or really good machines like cable machines and stuff that can load you up pretty intensely.
For sure. And I think a lot of people think that, oh, I got to go to the gym to lift the weights. No, I mean, 2020 taught us that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
20 taught us like, hey, get some dumbbells or kettlebells because they're going to sell out real quick. Bikes are going to sell out real quick because we had no outlet to go to. And that's, we started developing, back in the States, I started developing a gym. And here in Costa Rica, I have a whole bunch of kettlebells, dumbbells. I have a bench. Because if I can't make it to the gym, I can go out right to my patio and do what I need to do. So,
I'd love to work out. Yeah, you're in Costa Rica and I'm in Connecticut. So for me, it's in the room over my garage. It's really cold, but it's funny how many people I've convinced to buy rack and barbell, like for their home gym, because having a home gym is a great time-saving hack. It's a huge excuse obliterator for so many people if you can do it. And the other thing that surprises people is the investment in like a power rack, a bar, and plates is probably about the same as getting a whole set of dumbbells. Like maybe not quite, but it's not that far off. Yeah.
That's so true. And it's interesting we're talking about this because I was at a gym for a long time here in Costa Rica in Samara, and they were very limited to kettlebells and dumbbells. And then I went back to the States and I ended up staying there for 2 months because mom fell and had to take. And so I was like, I need to go back to CrossFit. I just needed to go in, get my workout in and leave. And it made me realize how much I missed getting under a bar, like doing squats, doing deadlifts. And so then when I returned to Costa Rica, I was like, I need to find a gym that's got leg press machine, bars, racks, whatever. And I found it. And I am so much, I look different. I look healthier. I look better because of really focusing on those compound movements.
I mean, I've not met anyone, it's even women who do it right and say they don't like it. Like, so I've had a lot of clients or people listen to the podcast say, well, I don't really like lifting weights. I'm like, well, how do you lift weights? Well, I go and I figure out what I want to do when I get to the gym and I use these machines and I do 10 to 15 rep. And I'm like, okay. And you're doing the same weight over and over again. That sounds boring as what? Like to me, that sounds boring. No wonder you don't like lifting weights. How about if you do these big movements where you feel like a badass, right? You feel big and strong. Like, again, women, that I work with, love that just as much as men. Like there's too many stereotypes about all this. I know you women love being strong and capable, right? So, I'm like, just do that for a few weeks and see the numbers go up. And I'm like, I'm benching more than I ever benched before after 3 weeks or whatever. It's because you never tried, right, in the past. And now we're doing it in this programmatic way. And then you get hooked. It's like a game. You just want to keep getting stronger.
I noticed you said something about habits. And that's something that I really have worked on for myself, my habits, my non-negotiables. And then I share that with the clients that I work with, mostly women, that I'm like, we got to get on habits. And so I will go into their program. I'm like, okay, did you get your 90 ounces of water today? Did you do this? Did you do that? What do you think is helpful for people and building habits and building those non-negotiables in life?
Yeah, my thoughts have changed a lot on this over the past few years. The main thing most people do that's, I guess, wrong is try to do too much, right? This is this time of year, we're in January recording this, and you have New Year's resolutions, right? And it's fine to set a goal. Like I'm all for goals and I set goals all throughout the year all the time. But you set a goal and then you're like, I'm going to do these 15 things that I didn't do in December. And I'm going to start doing them I'm going to walk 12,000 steps. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week and I'm going to quote unquote eat clean. Right. And so that's where you fall on your face. You're trying to push your comfort zone like way beyond where like stretch to its limits and beyond. So just take one or two things that are a small push on your comfort zone, right? Like if you have a desk job and you sit around all day and you track your steps and you get 3,000 steps, add in a walk after lunch for 20 minutes, that'll get you 2,000 more steps. Simple. Now, if you're like, well, I don't like walking or blah, 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 take hold of the excuses, right? And start to hammer them down like whack-a-mole, one after another, and say, why does this have to be the case, right? Like, let's get rid of those excuses. If you don't like walking, well, what if you listen to a podcast? Listen to Jen's podcast while you're walking, right? Go out
or yours.
Yeah, or mine. Go out in nature and get some vitamin C. Listen to some music, right? Like, there's a million things you can do. Lifting weights, same thing. If you want to lift weights, don't just go to the gym 5 days a week. Step 1, find a plan. Like, step 2, write it out. Step 3, get your gym bag ready so you don't have excuses in the morning. Little things like that you have to take one step forward, another step. And if you're 80% consistent, that's way more than what most people achieve. Like,
sure.
People have 0 days all the time. Don't have 0 days, but you don't have to be perfect. And if you do that and you kind of build on that, it helps to have accountability like a coach or a community, like a Facebook group or a community or a friend. It helps a lot to have that.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved. I mean, that's what I loved about CrossFit. It was a great community. And then even the gym that I had, even here at Samara, and then even in San Antonio when I lived there, the community was fantastic. But now I've gotten to a point where I'm so motivated. I don't need a class. I can go in and get my stuff done and out the door. It's bam, 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 bam. Put the beats on and listen to some Dr. Dre, and I'm golden. So.
Yeah, big fan. And also one more thing I was going to say is people listen to our shows probably binge a lot of podcasts, right? I know. And all I would encourage the listeners to do is don't just consume, like take action based on the shows that you trust the most, and use that as another motivator, extrinsic motivator as part of your journey to move forward.
That's great. Yep. That's beautiful. Philip, I could keep this conversation going, to be honest with you. Holy cow, this is good stuff. I might have to bring you back for if people have more questions, but where can people find you?
I'll say 2 places. The podcast, Wits and Weights. So go follow it right now, Wits and Weights. And then send me a message on Instagram at Wits and Weights.
Perfect. So final question, and I ask this all the time. Butterflies have played a big role in my life. And butterflies are all about that transformation, that change, right? They're going from that caterpillar to the cocoon to all of a sudden that metamorphosis into that beautiful butterfly. For somebody that might be going through a change, what piece of advice would you give them to keep going on that path?
Somebody who's going through a change. I guess what we just talked about of not trying to do too much, because the change itself can be a stressor on your body, right? And on your mind. And so I would look at that as a new adventure in life, this new phase of life, whether it's, post-career or post-menopause or whatever the transition is that you're going through, as an opportunity, right? To take advantage of a new phase in life. Whatever has changed for you has given you things that you may not have had before. So be positive, think of it not what you've lost, but what you've gained, and, go after that.
That's great. I love it.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wits and Weights. If you found value in today's episode and know someone else who's looking to level up their wits or weights, please take a moment to share this episode with them. And make sure to hit the follow button in your podcast platform right now to catch the next episode. Until then, stay strong. Hey, before you go, I want to let you know about a free resource I have. They are free guides on everything from fat loss to eating out to building muscle to managing hunger to figuring out the best macros for you and more, being added all the time. You want to get the most out of these podcasts and your time to look and feel your best, and these free guides will give you a quick and easy way to know what to do. If you want to get your hands on these completely free guides, you can head over to witsandweights.com/free. That's witsandweights.com/free to get your free guides and level up your results today.